This is a paid advertisement from BetterHelp. What do you want your 2025 story to be? Each new year gives us 365 blank pages to fill, and this year could be the perfect time for a plot twist. Maybe there's a chapter you've been meaning to rewrite, or a new journey that you're ready to begin. And having written my own book, I know every writer needs a good editor, and this is exactly where therapy can help. Therapy can be your editorial partner, helping you create a story filled with growth, strength, and meaning. It's not just for major challenges, which is something that it took me a long time to realise. It's about learning healthy coping skills, setting boundaries, and becoming the best version of yourself. With over 5,000 therapists, BetterHelp connects you to mental health professionals with expertise in a wide variety of areas. Write your story with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Megan. That's betterhelp.com/Megan.
GoLoud.
Welcome back to the Weekly Roast. How's it going, guys? How the hell are you? How are your hearts? And of course, how are your heads? Guys, what's going on? How are you doing? I hope you're well. I hope your January has gotten off to a good foot. It's very good to be with you. Guys, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who's been listening to the podcast over the last few months. We had a particularly enormous reaction last week to the funeral episode. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us here at the Weekly Roast every Wednesday. If you enjoy the podcast, if you enjoy my writing, perhaps consider subscribing to the Patreon in the bio, patreon.com/Mark Megan. Every single week, you get a brand new article handwritten by me. Now, moving on, as always, my friends, attached to my hip with milk on his lip, one hand on the breast as the other unzips. He's a man about town if the town is a barn, and he fondles your cattle while I spin the yarns. How are we, boy?
Good day.
I'm joined by my friend. I'm sorry, Kieran. We are vaguely devolving or delving into cow shagging territory here with the intros, so please forgive me. Just another injustice, obviously, one has to face when working with me on a weekly basis. Speaking of injustices, Kieran, I faced a great injustice on the weekend.
Go on.
I want to talk to you about. One of the great injustices in life has to be, and I've only realised this, whenever you regrettably use a public toilet, okay? You know when you go into a public toilet and you're like, oh God, but you need to use it. So you use the public toilet, okay? And it's been left in a horrendous condition. But then after you finish, there's somebody outside waiting to come in. And you're sort of trying to like telepathically be like, that wasn't me. Do you know what I mean? And then they grimace as they have to follow. They follow you into the cubicle and you want to call out to them almost out loud and say, David, you have the wrong guy. It wasn't me. Do you know what I mean? It's not what it looks like. These problems were here when I got here. You know, I inherited them. It's not on me to fix them. Just like the government, am I right? Do you know? But like, so I'm in Arnott's on the weekend. And I go into the Jacks and the cubicle was just like fucking Bobby Sands on ecstasy, like complete disaster zone stuff, like horrendous. But I was bursting for a pee. So I went in and then I come out and this guy is waiting to go in, okay? But the mirror above, I walk towards the sink and I can see in the mirror him walk into the cubicle. And he walks in and then he literally stops in his tracks and goes, oh, okay? And then turns around to leave the bathroom, but then makes eye contact with me in the mirror and then out of some sort of bizarre middle-class awkwardness went back into the toilet. So like the politeness, he was too polite basically to not go in front of me. So then he went back into the Jacks and the tragic cycle of poor bathroom hygiene continues. Except, of course, as I was leaving the toilet, there was another person coming in the door and I just sort of whispered to him, be careful there, mate. That guy's been in there for ages. So there you go. That was only the beginning of the drama, Kieran. I then went downstairs in Arnott's and I got caught in a heist. True story. An actual heist occurred on Saturday morning. I was involved in it. Let me set the scene. I was wandering through what can only be described as suffocating heat of the outdoor adventure ski gear section of Arnott's, okay? I don't know why that isolated area was so warm, but it was. Of all the areas to not have, 100% humidity, it would be the ski one. Nevertheless, I'm going in there, sweating my bollocks off. It's absolutely roasting. So much so that it would have Prince Andrew reaching for the 72-hour antiperspirant. Do you know what I mean? Speaking of antiperspirant, in walks a guy who was clearly antiperspirant, okay? This guy he was the shiftiest looking guy in the world, okay? And it was very apparent from the moment that I caught eyes with him that there was something going on. He was about as relaxed as Prince Andrew would be if he was asked by MI5 to name one thing on the menu in Pizza Express, do you know? Anyway, less of the royal nonsense and nonsense. So anyway, he's wandering around the North Face jackets and I can tell that there's something's odd. He keeps looking over at me, so much so that I think I'm about to be accosted or perhaps maybe asked for an autograph. I was waiting for him to come over and say, do you know what, Mark, I'm a huge fan of the podcast. Or at the very least, are you Simon from Grindr? But no. Neither a rendezvous nor a compliment were on his mind. It was pilfering he was after rather than perversion. He was getting ready to rob something, okay? And do you know what he was robbing? A Canada Goose jacket. Be less predictable, with your theft. Do you know what I mean? Could you be the Canada Goose jacket, the uniform for the misinformed, if Facebook comment sections are anything to go by? And by the way, he was wearing a Canada Goose jacket. So and assuming he has someone home, surely he doesn't need to add another Canada Goose to his ever-growing flock of Canadian geese to form some sort of North American fucking fleece gander. Anyway, he's shifting beside me and he gets this sleeveless Canada Goose jacket on and then he just proceeds to start ripping the yoke off the side. And he has some sort of instrument in his hands that I can't see what it is. Anyway, and he gets the security tag off. Bang. Straight up the back stairs of Arnott's, out onto the street. And what did I do? Absolutely nothing. All of the childhood fantasies I had about intercepting a bank robbery or rugby tackling an assailant, or just rugby tackling in general, an assailant in the midst of a heist, instantly evaporated. At the very least, I should have shouted out something like, "Hey, I believe that jacket's Mr. Gilmore's," anything. But I couldn't, my feet froze. I just stood there watching the whole thing unfold. And then I look up and I see the security guard by the front doors of Arnott's. And with the greatest respect, the security guard obviously had a sort of Paul Blart mall cop approach to police work, because next to wearing a literal sombrero and sucking on a piece of straw, or falling asleep in the chair with her feet on the desk and a feather at the end of her nose that sort of tickles her nostrils with every exhale, she couldn't have been more cartoonishly fucking asleep. And off he went about his business. And that's the game. So it wasn't me that did the jacks. That's the end of it. Nevertheless, it's the Roast of Neighbours, guys. Welcome back to the Weekly Roast. It is truly wonderful to be here with you. Guys, it's the Roast of Neighbours. Robert Frost famously said that good fences make good neighbours. And after hearing the submissions in today's show, I would be inclined to agree. Oniva, let's go.
I don't know if this one is a worse neighbour or just a bit of a mad neighbour. A few years ago, we moved into a new estate, and like you usually do, we joined the neighbourhood WhatsApp group. And basically it was, the usual, oh, have you seen my cat or dog? But one evening, we all got a message with an article, a link to an article about why having a threesome is good for your relationship.
No.
And just said, anybody interested? I thought I was seeing things. I couldn't believe this. I was like, what kind of estate have we moved into? Is it like a swingers or what? But we were all then dying to know, where do you live? And, just trying to find out who it was that sent the message. But the next morning, to make matters worse, his wife sent a message saying, "Oh, apologies about that message last night. My husband's actually doing a research project at the moment, and he just wants to, he's just looking to get some information from people.
No,
But
like
yeah, so it actually made things like definitely digging a hole. It made things worse. Nobody like fell for it at all.
digging two
And
holes.
a few days later, then we saw him packing his bags, and yeah, he was kind of kicked out. And yeah, quite a sad story, really, in the end. But yeah, he actually moved out of the house then. But yeah, we still laugh every time we walk by that house, thinking about the threesome.
Very sad in the end, actually. Yeah, and as he was leaving, he felt a lump. Do you know, like this is completely. It devolved very quickly. Okay, let's go through it. Husband doing a research project. Outrageous. What a appallingly bad excuse. Not as bad as I remember the time we were playing the maths game in senior infants, right? St. Bridget's Cabinteely, let's go. And I got down to the final 7. I don't know how I managed it, but it was me and 6 other gents. And the maths game was the teacher would shout out math sums, you had to guess it, and if the last person standing style scenario. And I was sitting beside a guy, the local nerd. He was the king of the nerds, okay? On the totem pole of nerds, he was perched at the top. This guy was the final boss of geeks, right? Maths whiz. He would make Alan Turing shit himself, right? And anyway, he was like fucking 6 or something. And he pissed himself. And do you know what his excuse was? Something just flew in the window and wet me. Ross, buddy, you don't anything. Say that your lunchbox burst. Anything. Any excuse. Your water spilled. Your water broke. Anything other than something. A fucking phoenix. An albatross. Swan swooped in the window around into the prefab and just dunked a bowl of water on your genitals. This is... Husband's asking for threesomes. Worst excuse of all time. I mean, a research project into having a threesome and collapsing a marriage by the sound of things. Now, what I will ask is, okay, questions need to be asked here. Who did he mean to send that to? Because if he meant to send it to his wife, that's sort of reasonable. Whether she wants to participate and engage and indulge in a threesome, that's entirely down to her. But like, I don't believe that would warrant ending a marriage. If he meant to send it to somebody else, that is the height of greed. Because not only is he thinking about cheating on his wife with one person, he's going, well, if I'm going to go for it, may as well have 2. You know, may as well have 2 orifices, you know, to put things into. Like, I also don't understand threesomes. I just grow up. Like. You don't like it. I don't believe people actually want a threesome. People want to do a threesome so they can say, sort of like going to Burning Man. Do you know what I mean? People do it to be able to say that they went. They don't actually enjoy the activity. It's not, or like visiting their grandparents. They don't actually want to do the thing. They just want to be able to say that they've done the thing because then they can go around and tell everyone, oh yeah, I did that there the other day. Do you know what I mean? A research project. Who wrote that? One of these fucking modern thing pieces you see in the Irish Times every other week. Oh, did you know that actually including an apple in intercourse is good for you? Shut up. Let's go.
So we had this elderly neighbour who lived next door to us, who's only recently passed, but she used to send my husband Valentine's Day cards, anonymous, in inverted commas, pretending that he was having an affair, so that I would think that he was having an affair. She'd put stuff on it saying, oh my God, Davy baby, last night was so good, can't wait to do it again, and all this stuff. But yeah, and that went on for 5 years. Every single year without fail, he would get a Valentine's Day card sent.
Initially, okay, when I was listening to this, I was thinking this is cute, you know? This is sort of like, this is a sweet little old lady, you know, sort of cheeky pensioner, do you know what I mean? She sounds like a bit of crack, probably like Maggie Smith meets Miriam Margoyle, do you know what I mean? Slip her a few Werthers at Christmas and she'll be putty in the hand. But then actually it gets a bit more sinister, doesn't it, Kieran? This sinister, vindictive, odious old wench, husband-stealing suburban version of Kathy Bates in Misery. What a fucking loon. There's a part 2 to this story. It gets much, much worse. Honeyval, let's go.
I could actually go on and on and on. She actually made our lives a hell for a while. At one stage, my husband was working as a bouncer, and she rang where he was working, and it just happened that he answered the phone, and she was ringing to make a complaint, saying that he was taking the drugs off the kids, confiscating the drugs off the kids, and that he was selling them. Yeah, so if only that was the case, we wouldn't be living where we're living now. But yeah, there's so much I could say.
Oh my God. That's genuinely crazy. Have you ever encountered or experienced or felt the wrath of a true crazy individual? Like, I mean, because I think I have. If you really could, like, if you really think about it, I would say there are 2 instances in my life when I've invited, and it's been my fault ultimately, because I do believe that my mistake very often in life was I was arrogant enough to think that I could contain the crazy. And I'm like, oh yeah, this individual's very much like not going to be healthy for me or to be in my life, but I can manage this. But the reality, and that's the biggest problem with crazy is, my friends, firstly, loons are going to loon. We know that much. But also, you can't contain crazy, because just because you decide to bow out at some point, that doesn't mean they are done. They can continue. That's why it is very important with a true madness to just avoid it at all costs, because there's no level that a loon won't stoop to. So you don't think you've ever had a crazy... No, you're sitting beside one, boy. I think that's insane. I don't know how to handle that situation other than, I guess, go to the guards from day one, like with the cards, or just an approach, like confront her immediately and go, sorry, what are you doing? Dolores, this is really mental. It's just all completely insane. Now, my friends, this isn't a roast of public transport, but pay attention, because somebody here has had a run-in with the neighbour who happens to be a taxi driver.
Hi Mark, love the show. Basically, the taxman got blocked in because whatever way he likes to park on this estate, my fella just threw his car there one day. So he threw his car in, but then another car came in and blocked him in. And then basically he was banging down the door, being aggressive about moving the car. We refused to. So then he decided to call the guards. So the guards came up and he thought he was the bee's knees, saying, like, look at this is ridiculous. And the guards basically laughed in his face and said it was a civil matter, and that if you were nicer about it, then he probably would have moved the car for him. So we left it for a good few hours before we decided to move the car. But he still hasn't learned his lesson. He still continues on to this day about his particular parking spot. Whereas it's just ridiculous. A man in his 60s, look.
It wouldn't be like taxi drivers to get wound up about something completely inconsequential, was it? I remember I once asked a taxi driver what his opinion was on trans rights, and the council still haven't managed to get the skid marks out of the tyre mark. I swear to God, he nearly crashed the car. Ayrton Senna wouldn't be able to reach for the handbrake quicker. A cousin of mine lives beside a taxi driver, and I was over in her gaff 2 weeks ago, and I got into, like, I don't want to say an argument, but I know that her neighbour hates me, but I always make an effort to have a chat, because he sort of like sits outside the front. But I was coming over, and one of their other neighbours was getting food delivered by a drone. You know the way some places do this now, where you can order food via a drone. They're road testing it with in a few different areas. Anyway, Blanchardstown is one of them. And I just look up and I was like, geez, look at that. And he goes, yeah, next thing they'll be sending someone around to your gaff to cook the food for you. And I just replied, catering. And he was like, what? And I was like, catering. They've already invented that. So I don't know what you mean. I was like, well, they've already... It predates the iPhone, brother. Like, you can already get someone to call over to your gaff to cook your food if you want. But this particular guy, my cousin has had so many run-ins with him. He's a real... To paint a picture, his bio on Twitter says, like, daddy to 2 little angles. Do you know what I mean? And his profile picture is an image of him with his 2 young daughters, but yet, like, he'll regularly reply to famous pop stars and, you know, say things like, I'd have to be dug out of you if they post a picture showing even a millimetre of cleavage. Do you know what I mean? And he'd be the type of guy that'd say, listen, you're a bloke. And you're going, well, yeah, like, I'm a bloke, but, like, I probably sit somewhere between Noel Fielding and Jamie Oliver on the spectrum of manliness. Do you know what I mean? So let's not devolve into... He's the type of guy that thinks liking a girl's picture on Instagram from January 2015 so his current girlfriend doesn't see is on the same level of computer wizardry as Alan Turing's The Enigma Code. Do you know the type? Like, he claims more responsibility for the victory and defeats of the English football team he supports rather than the welfare of his kids. You know, one of those guys, like, if you ever make the mistake of asking him how the team are doing, he does that. He uses the term we, as if, like, by warming a bar stool with his Jack and Jones jeans, he's contributing to the sporting achievements of Bristol Rovers or the Nottingham Wankers or whatever British backwater starting 11 he feels part of. Do you know what I mean? And then he has the audacity to, like, stomp around in misery for 4 or 5 days if his team loses. You know, one of those people like, how are you, Chris? You keeping well? Oh, not the best, mate. What happened? Everything okay with Tina and the kids? Oh, yeah, they're fine. Well, Tina's still in the coma and the kids are with the authorities, but Spurs lost 2-0 in a 1-1 draw against Wolves. So, yeah. Oh, my God. That's desperate. I had no idea. Yeah, it was a shit show, mate. I'm not going to lie to you. Endless chickens, the lot of them. Couldn't even follow simple instructions. No, I was asking about your wife and kids, Chris. Yeah, mate. So was I. Oh, God. Let's go to something a little bit lighter and, dare I say, shiter.
Hi Mark. So a couple of years back I lived on a cul-de-sac with not a whole lot of parking, and my next door neighbours thought that the parking spot that was between our two driveways belonged to them. So anytime I'd come home early and the parking spot was free, I always parked there because I knew it would piss them off. And one morning I came out to get into the car and they had put dog shit under the car door handle.
No, absolutely not. That is just... at what moment did she put the mitt under the door handle to feel that squishy familiarity? Do you know what I mean? Also, who do you live next door to? Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone. Do you know what I mean? Either that or Mr. and Mrs. fucking Twit. The original toxic couple. Long before, by the way, Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, we had the Twits. Shout out to the Twits. Shout out to Roald Dahl. Nevertheless, you sunk your mitt into a slice of dog shit. That is the worst way to start your day. And let's be honest here. How did you know that it was dog shit? Like, what did you do with your hand after putting it under the door? Like, there is a familiarity there in the most barbaric way possible. Sort of like, you know, whenever you feel like you're going to get sick and you keep putting it off and then the sides of your mouth start filling up with water. That's when you know you're gone. Once the sides of your mouth, you get that taste and you're like, I'm gone. It's game over. This is the worst funeral I've ever been to. Completely insane. I think we have to look at the assailant, right? The person that put the poo under the door handle. Now, everybody will know I'm a staunch believer of rehabilitation, okay? Of all varieties. Be it emotional, spiritual, or physical. There is no personal abyss that is truly impossible to climb your way out of. However, once you're willingly smearing dog excrement underneath a neighbour's door handle, I don't know if you're coming back from that. How could you ever hold your wife's hand again? Do you know what I mean? Or help an aging parent across the road. How could you give your daughter away on her wedding day knowing that you once squatted in your neighbour's garden at the crack of fucking dawn and smeared dog shit under their handle in the hope that they will get a fingernail full of feces before they go about their day? Good luck to you. The possibilities for personal disgustingness are boundless when it comes to this podcast. On y va. This is a paid advertisement from BetterHelp. What do you want your 2025 story to be? Every January, we have 365 brand new pages, right? This is metaphor now, not actual. You're not given a refill pad. Anyway, you've got 365 blank pages. Maybe you're ready for a fresh start. Maybe there's part of your story you've wanted to reimagine and restart. Maybe you're looking for a plot twist. Therapy isn't about resolutions that are forgotten memory come February. It's about becoming the author of your own life in every single sense. Therapy helps you learn positive coping skills, set boundaries, and discover new ways to be the best version of yourself. And no, therapy isn't just for big life events or traumas. Took me quite a while to realise that. It's for anybody ready to write a meaningful new chapter. With over 5,000 therapists, BetterHelp connects you to mental health professionals with expertise in a wide variety of areas. Write your story with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Megan. That's betterhelp.com/Megan. Okay, welcome back to the Weekly Roast again, guys. It's very, very good to be sitting here with you. I hope you're well. I hope you're having a lovely week. It's Wednesday now, but at the time of recording, I would just like to very briefly announce that I am officially, as of today, 2 years nicotine free.
Oh, come on.
Thank you very much. Absolutely the greatest gift of all time is to get the lungs back. And if anybody listening to this is not smoking or trying to quit smoking at the moment, please keep going. I smoked 30 a day. I was the biggest smoker I knew. I thought about cigarettes in a borderline erotic way. My relationship with them was just off the charts. I never thought that I could be sitting here saying I'm 2 years without any form of nicotine. So keep going if you're quitting. The app that I used was called Smoke Free, and I would wholeheartedly recommend it. But yeah. Anyway, guys, last week's episode was on funerals, and we got an enormous amount of listeners to it. So I'm delighted to hear it had such an effect. But for those of you that missed it, of course, you can go back and listen to it. But as we move on with the Neighbours podcast, there's still a little smattering of involvement of funerals.
So growing up, we had an odd neighbour. He'd grunt if you said hi to him, or if the dog came over, he'd stamp his foot at him. And looking back, he probably had mental health issues, but at the time we just thought he was a miserable old shite. Anyway, when our dad died, we had him at home for the removal, and he put cones out in front of his house to stop people parking. So maybe we were right, he was a miserable old shite all along.
That is shocking. Horrendous. That is an almost dictatorial lack of empathy for your fellow man. And yeah, I'd be taking each of those traffic cones and just launch them in the, good luck, gone, green bin, no bother. Now, speaking of funerals, right? The way you can leave, by the way, if you're listening to this, you can leave comments under the episodes on Spotify if you do listen on Spotify. So if you enjoy the show, please listen to nice ones. Oh, by the way, sorry, if you enjoy the show, will you share it with a friend and make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you listen to your podcast? That makes all the difference. Anyway, one of the comments left under the podcast last week was, brilliant. No, you should do one about wakes. We've sort of covered it there, man. I feel there's something a bit perverted about that. That's enough. There's a bit of a necro vibe to that. We've done. Oh, you should do another one there about coffins. Wouldn't that be very funny? Yeah, there's something very hilarious about the way people lie in them, isn't it? With their eyes closed. Oh yeah, and their arms folded across their chests like they're going down a water slide. Oh yeah, it'd be hilarious. You should do something like that. Yeah, of course. Or maybe even you could do a full show about the urns that people get put into and how their ashes flutter in the breeze on a windy day. Wouldn't that be fantastic? The listeners, I'd say, would love it. Or, of course, you could always do something about their feet. Couldn't you? Maybe that'd be a laugh. They're cold, waxy, gentle feet. Lifeless. Waiting for my lips. You're a pervert. We've done funerals. It's time to move on. Not from the grief element, but just... Anyway, on we go.
Hi, Mark. We have a WhatsApp group in our estate where we give away any unwanted items, particularly kids stuff. And my next door neighbours, who are a young couple with no kids, take all the really good kids items and then sell them on adverts. I've seen people pull up to his house a couple of days later to collect all the stuff that he's sold. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's just, I can't believe that. Whether you believe in a God, a creator, karma, or otherwise, surely those two individuals will get their comeuppance in some shape or form in this life or perhaps the next, because that is deplorable. No, there's no forgiveness for that. Again, though, I think somebody should intervene and just say, no, sorry. No, we're not giving you those things. No trikes for you, Mike. No. You're good luck.
So we were sitting at home one random Saturday evening and watched car after car after car pull into our drive, had a quick look, left again, got really curious, didn't know what was going on until somebody knocked on our door and said, what's the going price for your house? What are you selling it at? Until we went outside and my neighbour had put a for sale sign in a blind spot to us, but open to the public. We're still good friends now. He's our favourite neighbour.
I think that's amazing. That's actually a good neighbour. Like, that's good crack. That's good, as they would say, banter. Pranks, I'm not usually a fan of. Largely because whenever I was 14, I went over to a friend of mine's gaff and we were all supposed to be smoking weed for the first time. And unbeknownst to me, a joint was filled with pubes. And then I was given the joint of pubes, smoked the pubes, pretended to be stoned, and then was the laughing stock of the schoolyard the following week. Just another one of the senseless atrocities, Kieran, that I faced in my adolescence, which ultimately shaped the lopsided individual I went on to become. The thing that I don't understand is, like, pretended to be stoned. All I did was, they asked me, like, are you feeling it? And I was like, yes, I think so. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I donned a culturally problematic Jamaican hat with fake dreadlocks attached and started playing Buffalo Soldier on the tin whistle. Do you know what I mean? I merely said, yeah, I think it's hitting me. Absolutely shocking. Pranks can often go wrong. The only time that I've ever pulled a prank that I really and truly regret, and I still think about this far too frequently, my parents were having a Christmas party when I was about 7, okay? And all the kids were in one room. And my younger sister had a selection box. Okay, my sister was probably about 4 or 5 at the time. And there was another girl there who's probably around the same age as my younger sister, 4 or 5. And my younger sister offered her something from her selection box and she took the curly whirly. And the curly whirly was my sister's favourite thing. So I closed the door that we were all in, all the kids, and I said, sorry guys, we're going to have to call the police. Because Moya's eating the curly whirly. That was her name, Moya. Because Moya's eating the curly whirly. And everyone was like, oh God, Moya, you're going to jail. You're going to prison. And she started crying and was like, I just want to go to my mum. I'm so sorry. And started trying to give back the half-eaten curly whirly. I still think about that and cringe with regret and remorse. And that's the game, Moya. Enjoy the whirly. Enjoy the curly. Good night. God bless.
Hello, Marco. Love the podcast. We had a neighbour in Dublin when we were renting, and we were working from home one day, and I got a smell of smoke. I thought the place was on fire, so I rushed out into the hallway, and there was my neighbour puffing away on a cigarette, and I was relieved it wasn't a fire. I was like, oh, it's only you. And she started tearing me asunder. She was like, oh, I own my fucking apartment. I can do what I want. It's my fucking house. You're only renting. So, yeah, a couple of years later anyway, we own our own house and she's still in her apartment the size of a shoebox, smoking away. So, yeah, it was a good one, all right.
I mean, we'll ignore the abject classism at the end towards those who live in apartments. But this, for me, is more of a story about resentment than the recounting of neighbours' misdemeanours. However, smoking in the hallway of an apartment building is very ridiculous. Like, that's deeply inconsiderate. It's all of like, what are your thoughts on people who smoke weed in public? Really against it, to be honest. I know there's no soapbox that I can position myself on, but good God, smoking weed in public, I feel like in Ireland anyway, it's done it's almost done with the intention of aggravating. Some people are like, don't get me wrong, like if you're somewhere out in the open and you're smoking a joint, that's grand. But in terms of when you're in a close proximity to people, I feel like there is the emergence of pseudo-liberal Egypts who want to force their weed smoking down your throat in an attempt, they want you to say something to them. It's an invitation to go on, I dare you to say, why are you smoking that joint? Go, it's a plant. It's a plant. The real issue. Where's the blah, blah? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a fan of it. And the smell, by the way, is disgusting. And it's insanely, what's the word? But it fills the entire street. So not for me. Now, again, I don't have a leg to stand on. I used to, as many readers of my book will know, I used to smoke lying in bed. Isn't that so grim? When I was like 18, I lived in Brighton. I used to smoke in bed, and the worst part about it is I thought it was like really romantic.
Oh, the smell.
Yeah, disgusting. And I'd tap into ash into like a fucking glass of water. Oh my God, the degradation of it. There's actually nicotine addiction is pretty bad. I remember, there'd be times now, obviously, wasn't my only addiction at the time, and I was drinking badly, but like I remember like at 4 a.m. in the morning, when I lived in Fulham, I'd be like turning over the bins to try and find butts to smoke because I'd be finished with I couldn't find them. I like going out to the garden with the iPhone torch seeing if I could find any butts that'd be smokable. That is just disgusting. Nevertheless, Onival, let's go.
I work from home and I caught the neighbour across the road cheating on his pregnant partner in her house. I noticed a strange girl was calling to the house every couple of days for a number of weeks, and when I knew I had enough proof, I confronted him on it. And he denied it and said that they were just work colleagues, that they worked together. Now, he works in a bar, so it wasn't the cocktail menu that they were going up the stairs to study.
Oh.
But the girl has stopped calling to the house. And now the guy can't make eye contact with me since.
I mean, fair play. How did you know they were going upstairs? Because there's an element of peeping Tom or, Tina, as the case may be. I think fair play, it's the age-old question. We've had it on the podcast before. If you see somebody cheating, if you see somebody that you know cheating, what do you do? Do you do anything or do you not? For instance, Kieran, let me posit this to you. One of your colleagues here in the office, okay? You're out for dinner with your wife and you see one of your colleagues' partners snogging somebody else. What do you do with that information?
Oh, I don't want that type of...
Yeah, you
that's
don't.
above my pay grade.
It is. It's one of those ones that you don't want to see it. But is that why people don't send them? Because they're like, I'll just turn a blind eye. I don't want to get involved in that hurricane of dogs. Like, yeah, I think fair play to this. In this instance, I'm with the person, to be honest. I think fair play to her for saying it to your man. I don't know if I would do the same.
Oh, no?
I don't know. If it was a neighbour, no way. Shitting where you sleep, getting involved in local drama, good luck. Keep yourself to yourself. As far as I'm concerned, the best type of relationship to have with your neighbour is a silent one. Just a grunt. Oh yeah, that's it. Icy this morning, that's it. Cold, grand, yeah. Darken out, yeah. Happy Christmas, good luck. Nothing else. It's so vital to maintain your own personal space and for that to be uninfiltrated by loons, that this is the loon protecting area. Like, my gaff needs to be the space from loons, of course, except for the two bloody occupying it. Am I right? The bunch of mad. Oh, I say all you do is laugh every day. No, we don't. But your house needs to be a loon-free zone. And I think engaging with the neighbours, it's like, I said this before, it's like making friends with people on the first day of holidays. Don't do it. Don't be seduced by the excitement of small talk with Phil and Linda from Bournemouth. Don't fucking do it. Because then you can't walk by the pool without having to pretend to like the football again. Oh, mate, have you seen Wolves went 2-1 up against Shells? No, I haven't. I don't know anything about football. I don't know anything about you, Phil, and I don't want it. I lied in the airport, Phil. I pretended to be a normal man with interests in sport. I don't fucking care. I don't care about any of this. I don't like golf. I don't like your wife. I don't like the chat. We're never going to see each other at that dinner. We're not going to the karaoke night. I hate this. I hate this holiday. I hate this whole thing. Loon-free areas, holidays, your house, they should be loon-free areas. These are the places that we need to go to escape the madness of the modern world. Don't be friends with your neighbours. Love thy neighbour as you love thyself. Ergo, give them space, compassion. Let them live their lives. Unless, of course, no. Nevertheless, on we go. This is a paid advertisement from BetterHelp. What do you want your 2025 story to be? Every January, we have 365 brand new pages, right? This is metaphor now, not actual. You're not given a refill pad. Anyway, you've got 365 blank pages. Maybe you're ready for a fresh start. Maybe there's part of your story you've wanted to reimagine and restart. Maybe you're looking for a plot twist. Therapy isn't about resolutions that are forgotten memory come February. It's about becoming the author of your own life in every single sense. Therapy helps you learn positive coping skills, set boundaries, and discover new ways to be the best version of yourself. And no, therapy isn't just for big life events or traumas. Took me quite a while to realise that. It's for anybody ready to write a meaningful new chapter. With over 5,000 therapists, BetterHelp connects you to mental health professionals with expertise in a wide variety of areas. Write your story with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Megan. That's betterhelp.com/Megan. Oh, welcome back to the Weekly Roast. And now, my friends, I'm delighted to announce it is the first one of 2025. It's the first one in quite some time. It is, close the young ears if you have them in the car, the Willy Willy Bum Bum section. What's that? Your child heard? No, I'm not going to explain to your child what a Willy Willy Bum Bum section is. Anyway, it's the Willy Willy Bum Bum section of the show. It's great to have you with us. If you enjoy the podcast, shoot me a message on Instagram at Megan Mark. Please subscribe to it wherever you listen to it. And of course, share it with a friend. It's the best way to spread the word. Let's go.
Okay, so I live in a flat downstairs, and the woman above me, her sitting room is above my bedroom, and she weekly has orgies. Yeah, it's quite disturbing. Very thin walls. We can hear everything. On one particular occasion, we actually heard her asking for ID and telling someone that they had to be over 18 to join in, which is quite interesting. We regularly hear what names are being called, and on many occasions asking to get her pregnant and things like that.
What?
So not very fun for us when we're trying to sleep and we get to hear how much interesting things go on in her flat all night.
This is... Okay, the pregnancy thing really complicated it. Because that then all of a sudden sounds like a problematic rom-com back in the early noughties starring Vince Vaughn, where, for instance, there's a woman who wants to get pregnant but apparently suffers from some sort of unique genetic disorder where she can only be impregnated by a very specific semen type, and thus embarks on a journey of sexual liberation where she has sex with thousands upon thousands of men in an attempt to get pregnant. And then eventually she does get pregnant, but who does she get pregnant by? Her fat, doughy housemate. Enter Vince Vaughn, who for the whole thing is interrupting the shagging and be like, you gotta stop. Is this...
You need to write that script.
Do you know what I mean? Okay, so the pregnancy complicates it. The asking for ID is absolutely, hold on to your hat, take your penis out of your hand, boy. Derangement levels of insanity. An orgy, Kieran. Do you want to... Like, an orgy for me...
Do you want to what?
Do you want to... What are you two doing this weekend? An orgy for me is like moving to France or owning your own bar. It's almost certainly going to be better in your head than it is in reality, okay? Can we all please accept that? An orgy functions perfectly as a fantasy because it's just a fantasy. It can't really exist. In reality, there is a lot more chafing, grunting, groaning, moaning, sweating, stinking, laughing. Like, it could not be considered sexual even by the most unreasonably horny individual, you know, or Kieran. Like who in their right mind would want to be involved in a sweaty collision of hands and fucking feet? Imagine the smell of the feet alone. Do you know what I mean? And all of the foostering and, like, you know, okay. Oh, let me take a breath, okay? Growing up, I'm sort of getting a semi here. No, but growing up, the idea of an orgy... Orgies were created for the fantasies of teenage boys. That's the height of it, realistically. The idea of an orgy as a teenager was nirvana because, you know, you'd be approaching it from the perspective of being in a room with 23 nymphs, who are all smothering you with breasts and affection, you know, and it's all about you. But the reality is, you'd be standing in some sort of dirty room, brushing arse cheeks with the truck driver from Derbyshire named Keith, do you know what I mean? Whose breath smells like juicy fruit, and a bank manager from Leash, just in order to get your end away. Like, this would not be an enjoyable experience. The whole thing provides far too many opportunities for a normal person to get awkward. Like, I'd just be standing there with the truncheon on me, being like, right, like, which one am I? Do you know what I mean? Hiya guys, anyone like the roast? You know, like this is, and I'd also be, let's be honest, measuring. I'd be like, well, that guy is a bigger dick than me. Does he get precedence? This whole thing, an orgy is just, and I know that some people are probably listening to this who have been in sort of drug-fueled orgies and they're all like, oh no, it's all based on vibes. There are no vibes in orgies. There couldn't be. That amount of smearing and smelling. And then let me ask you this. Anybody listening who's been to an orgy, do they all try and finish at the same time in some sort of grand, sweeping sexual symphony? Or is it every man for himself in this orchestra of perversion? Yeah, like surely there'd be a moment. Imagine Kieran, we're in an orgy, right? Surely there'd be a moment when you'd look up over your shoulder and you'd see me smiling.
Winking.
With milk on my lips and dripping from the tip. On we go, my boy.
Hi, Kieran. Hi, Mark. So in terms of worst neighbour, we have an across-the-road neighbour in our estate who is actually very nice, but just a walking disaster. She engages in a whole manner of bizarre and inexplicable behaviours, but one particular habit that she has is leaving the lights on in the evening and on into the night, along with blinds up and curtains open, so we can see everything that's going on. And we have been unwillingly made privy to many sexual encounters after the hours of 11 p.m. in full view. And, if you'll excuse the pun, these sexual encounters are actually over the kitchen counters because the kitchen is at the front of the house.
Very good.
The interesting part is that none of these sexual encounters are with her boyfriends at the time. So close your blinds, turn off your lights, be a good neighbour. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'd put the house on it because, sorry, this is one of those ones where like a quick conversation would just sort it out. But I would put the house on it that it was her husband's idea to not have that conversation. Do you know what I mean? Oh, geez, see, Miriam's at it again. I think I'm just going to call over and have a word. No. I think we should just leave it there. Maybe we should just. We wouldn't want to be getting involved, Helen. No, we wouldn't want to be making a nuisance of ourselves. Do you know what? Look, if it happens again tonight, I'll go out and I'll have a look. I'll double check just to see if she's. You leave it to me. I'll take care of this, Helen. Leave it to me. I'll head out there this evening now and see if she's still at. I'll bring some tissues just in case it gets cold on my, and Vaseline, of course, in case my lips get chapped, and a J-cloth to cover my genitals. I'll just, for the wanking. This is one of those things that literally one conversation. Hey, Laura, how's it going? Just to let you know, whenever you're shagging people over the kitchen counter, we can all see. So stop. Do you know what I mean? Or not stop, but basically we can all see. And I think I read something a while ago about apparently you can be done for public indecency even if it's in your own flat or gaff. Huh? Yeah, I think you can. Which leads me to my next point. If that is the case, I'd like to set the record straight that our house was recently broken into by a man with a very average sized penis. And he's been living there for over a year. And he has a doughy physique and answers to the name of Mark. So listen, anyway, yeah, I think one of those ones, you could definitely have a conversation. It's not on us to ascertain whether or not she's having sex with boyfriends or other people. Like, as I'm learning, by the way, guys, I'm a very conventional guy. Lots of people have open relationships are much more. Kieran shaking his head. No?
No.
Not a fan?
No, thank you.
Yeah, not for you.
Closed.
The
loon-free area.
loon-free area. Kieran's genitals are a loon-free area, and he wants them like.
I want it to remain that way.
I'm completely with you. I just could never. I'm personally, and again, anybody on this journey of life. By the way, we all have to do whatever we can do within reason to derive a bit of happiness, peace between the ears, and joie de vivre. And if that. If having an open relationship gives that to you, fair play to you. I'm just not mature enough. I'm not, do you know what? I think it comes down to maybe security. Like, I'm not sure of myself enough to be comfortable with my wife to be sleeping with 7 other lads and then coming home and going, we watch Squid Games. You can watch fuck off games. You can get out of the gaff. Good luck.
I live in an apartment complex and posters left in
like the common reception lobby area. This person's post arrived. Their husband noticed it on the way to the shop. When he came back from the shop, the post was gone. He put a message into the group saying, someone's taken my wife's post. The wife's post was that wild deodorant you can buy, like refillable orders. Later that day, the parcel box was back down in the lobby area, only it was not her wild deodorant order, but a large black dildo. I suggested starting a podcast to find the thief. I want to call it Only Dildos in the Building.
Once again, dildos rear their silicone throbbing heads in this podcast of ours, my boy. And I will just say one thing. I'm really just not a fan of dildos. I've said it before, but I feel like dildos have a lot to answer for in terms of setting false body standards for men. For our whole entire lives, we keep hearing this, oh, it's not about the size, Mark. I mean, people, one can assume, you know, oh, it's not about the size, it's how you use it. Cool. What size is your dildo? 17 inches. Good stuff. Do you know what I mean? Why are these dildos the size of a 3-iron? This is absolutely derangement levels. Now, let's get into the dildo thief and the pilfering of the deodorant. I think that there is a very solid chance the wife in question, or the woman in question, don't know about matrimony, I think that there is a very solid chance she never ordered any deodorant in the first place. She ordered the large black dildo, and that's what was that supposed to be? Immediately thinks of something cylindrical, thinks of deodorant. It was the wild deodorant. That's it. And by the way, ordering deodorant in the mail, like, grow up. Just go to your... Do what we all do and try, you know... I don't know. And it seems... Are they the same person? Is the person that robbed the deodorant the same as the person who's replacing it with a dildo? What benefit would you get? But I don't know. Any thoughts?
I think you're one who sent the voice note in knew far too much about this.
She knew too much about the dildo, for sure. We'll get you, dildo baron. On we go.
So when we lived in our old house, we were attached to a couple in their late 50s. The man, every morning when I was going to work, used to stand at the front window flashing his penis. And this went on for a few weeks. And I got talking to one of the neighbours. And she said that he does it to her at night time whenever she'd be outside smoking. So we decided we would go to the guards, and we went to the guards and we told them. And the guard called in with them one day and asked them to stop because the neighbours weren't happy. And that evening when we returned home, they confronted us. And they said that we were at fault, that we shouldn't have been looking in their windows. Even though in the morning he might have come to the window fully dressed, and 10 seconds later, as I was reversing out of the drive, his penis was on show. So there is no way that was my fault. He continued to do it. He started playing music at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. He, just a nasty, nasty man. And we eventually sold our house and moved on and found out he still does it to the neighbours. So, yeah, not a nice person.
Oh, God. Yeah, well, let's just remind you, dear listener, none of this was your fault, okay? And very sorry that you had this experience. I don't know if the penis showing was part of why you moved house, but if it was, yeah, shocking. I mean, I never thought I'd be saying this in the podcast, but I need to get a bit of a handle on the penis here. I mean, was he just produced, like, so when he was fully dressed, like, would he take his cacks off entirely and do like sort of like the junior infants at the urinal style? Do you know what I mean? Or I remember one time when we were in junior infants, oh God, we had these long urinals, and obviously it would all be jocks around the ankles, you know, baby ass. And this kid did a dump standing up for the urinal out the back. Anyway, would he be doing that, or would he just be like slipping the penis out through the fly. But either way, it's, again, I don't mean this to, I'm never an advocate of violence or anything like that, but surely you could get somebody in the estate, potentially a man, to go over and have, dare I say it, a stiff word with them and just say, listen, I don't care what your excuses are for this. The next time you're seen at the window with the fucking, excuse my language, with your penis out though, it's game over. Like, I think that's, it's sort of sickening that can just be allowed happen and then be ongoing and the nonsense. And then eventually he'll get too old. So it'll be, I just don't know. He doesn't know himself. Yeah, he does. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. He just can't help himself. Not dissimilar to me when it comes to not flashing my neighbours, but when it comes to eating shite. Part of the reason, Kieran, as to why I'm on this new health kick, I wasn't supposed to be talking about it, but I'm on a health kick, right? At least trying to be on a health kick since New Year's. And it's very hard because my appetite for anything that takes me away from myself is, as we know, insatiable. And since I quit smoking, sugar replaced the smoke, just all the time. Like, it's like my taste buds returned, and then the desire to eat sweets, chocolate, anything just came back with a vengeance. But I think, like, and with the stress of the wedding, like, I was eating loads as well, blah blah blah. Between Christmas and New Year's, I was probably days away from contracting gout. But I was sitting on the couch, right, and I had this moment of like, it has to change. When I was meticulously selecting choices from what can only be described as a bouquet of churros. Churros is game over. Like, I think I've said that before, but churros, that's when I knew. When you're eating, churros are when you've reached the terminal stage of gluttony. Do you know what I mean? 10,000 meaningless calories per circular inch, deep fried, squiggly dicks of dust, usually prepared by hands which care about hygiene in the same way Harold Shipman cared about Trustpilot reviews. Do you know what I mean? Donuts I can understand because they're squishy. Like, a bite into donut is freedom, it's childhood, it looks and feels like a treat. For every bite of churros, though, you're swallowing much more than pride, and that's before we even mention the dips. Dipping a churros, dipping the sweet thing into something sweeter again is like using vodka as a chaser for a pint of absinthe. Do you know what I mean? You've already had the sweet thing. Let it go, Mark. It's like realising that you've left your headphones and your jeans halfway through the washing cycle and then running upstairs to grab your phone to throw it in with them. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I was sitting on the couch eating like this fucking churro, ladling what can only be described as synthetic gloop into the back of my gullet. And that's when I knew the game was over. My voice, I tried to speak to Darren to ask her to change the channel, and my voice was so garbled because the caramel was stuck to the back of my throat, and I was like, and that was it. That was the end. So after swallowing a few more sugary serpents, the joy was gone. And I know I was just eating against my will. And in my experience, consuming anything that is destructive towards your health long after it gives you joy is unlikely to be beneficial in the long run. Now, that's not to suggest I won't keep trying it, but still, I'm on a health kick. Let's go. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the Weekly Roast. It's great to be back, and it's great to have you with us. If you enjoy the show, let me know. Send me a DM on Instagram at MeganMark. And as you know, if you enjoy my content every week, I release a new article on Patreon, patreon.com/Mark Megan. There's lots of additional content and exclusive stuff coming your way over there. So if you're a fan, click subscribe. The link is in the bio. I would hugely appreciate it. Have a great week. Look forward to seeing you soon. All the best. Take care. This is a paid advertisement from BetterHelp. What do you want your 2025 story to be? Each new year gives us 365 blank pages to fill, and this year could be the perfect time for a plot twist. Maybe there's a chapter you've been meaning to rewrite, or a new journey that you're ready to begin. And having written my own book, I know every writer needs a good editor, and this is exactly where therapy can help. Therapy can be your editorial partner, helping you create a story filled with growth, strength, and meaning. It's not just for major challenges, which is something that it took me a long time to realise. It's about learning healthy coping skills, setting boundaries, and becoming the best version of yourself. With over 5,000 therapists, BetterHelp connects you to mental health professionals with expertise in a wide variety of areas. Write your story with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Megan. That's betterhelp.com/Megan.